gallery was nearly empty when Eleanor Hayes realized she had made a terrible mistake. She had been standing in front of a painting for almost 20 minutes now, and the soft classical music playing through the speakers had lulled her into a peaceful trance. And she had forgotten entirely that the museum closed at 9. The security guard was making his final rounds, and his footsteps echoed through the marble halls. Eleanor clutched her purse tighter and felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. And she was 58 years old, and here she was getting locked in a museum like some distracted teenager. She hurried toward the exit, but the heavy glass doors were already locked. Through the window she could see the rain falling steadily on the Chicago streets beyond, and the streetlights cast golden pools on the wet pavement. She turned to find another way out and nearly collided with someone in the darkness. Her breath caught, and she stumbled backward, and a strong hand reached out to steady her in that moment of confusion and closeness, and without thinking, she pressed her lips briefly against his cheek in what was meant to be an apology, but he had turned his head at the same moment, and their lips met instead. Eleanor pulled back immediately, and her hand flew to her mouth. The man stepped into the soft emergency lighting, and she could see him clearly now. He was perhaps 60 and dressed in an expensive charcoal suit, and his salt and pepper hair was perfectly styled, and there was something commanding yet gentle in his eyes. Thomas Mitchell had been reviewing the museum's quarterly reports in the director's office when he heard the commotion. As the primary benefactor and a board member, he had keys to every room, and he often stayed late to walk through the galleries alone and to remember why he had fallen in love with art in the first place. His wife had passed away 5 years ago, and these quiet evenings surrounded by beauty were his way of feeling less alone. Now he stood looking at this woman who had just accidentally kissed him, and he felt something he had not felt in a very long time, a flutter of possibility. "I am so sorry," Eleanor said, and her voice was soft and mortified, "and I did not mean to do that, and I was just trying to apologize for bumping into you, and oh goodness, this is humiliating." Thomas found himself smiling, and it was a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Do not be embarrassed," he said, and his voice was warm and reassuring. "And I have had much worse greetings, and besides, you seem to be in a predicament." Eleanor explained her situation and how she had lost track of time, and Thomas listened with patient attention. He noticed the way she gestured when she spoke, and the kindness in her eyes, and the slight tremor of nervousness in her hands. "Let me help you," he said, "and I can unlock the front entrance." As they walked through the darkened galleries, Eleanor found herself relaxing. Thomas asked about the painting she had been admiring, and she told him about her late husband and how he had loved Impressionist art, and how she came to the museum on their anniversary each year to feel close to him. Thomas stopped walking and turned to look at her with understanding. "Wife loved this place too," he said quietly, "and that is why I give what I can to keep it beautiful." And she believed art was a language that spoke when words failed. They stood together in the quiet gallery, and two people who had loved deeply and lost deeply, and the silence between them was comfortable rather than awkward. When they reached the entrance, Thomas unlocked the door, but made no move to open it just yet. The rain was still falling outside, and he found himself reluctant to let this evening end. "May I offer you a coffee?" he asked, "and there is a late-night cafe just around the corner, and it seems a shame to send you out into the rain after such an unusual meeting." Eleanor hesitated, and then smiled. "I would like that very much." They sat in the small cafe with steaming cups between them, and talked for 2 hours. Eleanor learned that Thomas had built his company from nothing, and that he had 2 grown children who worried he worked too much, and that he still set a place for his wife at holiday dinners before remembering she was gone. Thomas learned that Eleanor had been a teacher for 30 years, and that she had 3 grandchildren who were the light of her life, and that she sometimes still reached across the bed in the morning expecting to find her husband there. There was no pretense between them, and no games or careful posturing. They were 2 people who had lived full lives and known real love and real loss, and they understood that life was too short for anything but honesty. When Thomas walked Eleanor to her car, the rain had stopped and the streets gleamed under the lights. At her car door, he paused. "I know this might seem forward," he said, but would you like to have dinner with me this week, and a proper dinner where neither of us accidentally kisses the other?" Eleanor laughed, and it was a warm, genuine sound. "I would like that, and though I cannot promise there will not be any accidents. Over the following months they discovered a gentle courtship. There was no rush and no desperation. They went to galleries and quiet restaurants and long walks through the park where the leaves turned gold. And read. Thomas met Eleanor's grandchildren and got down on his knees to play blocks with the youngest. And Eleanor met Thomas's children, who were surprised and delighted to see their father smile so easily again. They talked about their late spouses without guilt and shared memories without fear, and they understood that loving again did not mean forgetting what came before. On a cool evening in November, Thomas took Eleanor back to the museum. He led her to the same gallery where they had met and stood before the same painting she had been admiring that night. "Eleanor," he said, and took her hand. "And I have been alone for 5 years, and I thought that chapter of my life was finished, and then you stumbled into me in the dark and gave me the most unexpected kiss." She squeezed his hand and waited. "I am 62 years old." He continued. "And I have built buildings and businesses, and I have raised children and lost the love of my life, and I thought I knew what happiness looked like. But this and what we have found and feels like a second chance, I did not know I could." Have Eleanor felt tears in her eyes. "Thomas, I am not young and I am not glamorous, and I have wrinkles and gray hair and a past full of memories." He cupped her face gently. "And I love every year that shows on your beautiful face," he said. "And because those years made you who you are and the woman who understands what it means to love truly." They kissed then, and properly this time, and with intention and tenderness. It was not the passionate kiss of youth, but something deeper and richer and flavored with gratitude and wisdom. Around them the paintings watched silently, and bearing witness to this quiet beginning. Eleanor and Thomas married the following spring in a small ceremony surrounded by their families. They did not try to recreate what they had lost, but instead built something new, something that honored the past while embracing the present. And sometimes late at night, when Thomas wrapped his arms around Eleanor, he would whisper, "Thank you for that midnight mistake." And Eleanor would smile in the darkness and reply, "It was the best mistake I ever made." Because love, she had learned, does not come just once. It comes whenever we are brave enough to open our hearts again, and sometimes it arrives in the most unexpected moments. In a darkened museum, in an accidental kiss, in the gentle touch of understanding between two souls who thought their stories were finished, but were really just beginning a new chapter.